All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Correct Loser. I hope you're doing well. So, folks, today is the day that most of us knew would come eventually. We are going to go over and analyze the 2014 interrogation of unimaginable child molester Larry Nassar. And he had an interrogation in 2014. Somehow, no charges came from it. He was able to do what he always did and just say it wasn't inappropriate touch. It was medical, and I'm known for this. And there just needs to be more explaining. She needs to know why I was touching her like that. And it's really maddening to look back. But like I said, no charges were filed. And then 2 years later, he was back in the hot seat in 2016. And finally, it all crashed down for him after that one. I think we'll probably go over that interrogation next week after Thanksgiving. I watched the documentary Athlete A this past weekend. I didn't even know it came out. It came out this past summer. I recommend it if you've at all been interested in this case. They really put a lot of the information that I was always wondering together. There's no way I can tell it better than that story, but I am going to, just so we are all on the same page and feel the true gravity of finally, after 30 years, Larry Nassar, this man sitting down in an interrogation chair. It was such a long time coming. And so let me just set it up. Larry Nassar graduates from medical school to become an osteopathic doctor. I Googled it, and from what I can tell, it's just a normal doctor that talks a lot, like a long-winded doctor. And he said that he gets his first job, pretty sure, at Michigan State University, and at least according to him, who knows if it's even true, they said, as part of this job, you have to do some volunteer work in the community. So, what does Larry Nassar pick? You could pick anything. Larry goes directly to the gymnastics gym with all the adorable little girls hopping around in leotards and says, I will be the doctor for free. I will work here for free, please. And so he starts to volunteer. They're getting a real doctor for this volunteer. They probably were thinking this is great. And then they were probably all child molesters too. So they, who knows. But so he's volunteering. He's the zany doctor guy. They show him doing treatments, and he's like manipulating this girl's ankle, and he's going, I'm going to move your ankle to the left. I'm going to move it to the right. That's his personality is like the zany, funny guy. And looking at the whole picture just makes the whole thing even more horrifying. But he's going, I'm the zany guy. I'm going to move it to the boot, and you're fixed. Okay, does that feel better? Perfect. All right, now stand up, flip around, and yeah, even just that zany personality, I'm always just like, what are you hiding, I'm not saying zany can't be funny, but it's right down there at the bottom of comedic quality, in my opinion. So for just years upon years, he is molesting all of these gymnasts under the guise that it's medical treatment. And these treatments were mandatory. And if you didn't want creepy Larry to come in and molest you, and you said, you know what, I don't need a treatment today. If you tell your coaches, I don't need a treatment because nothing hurts, I feel good, I'll see you in practice tomorrow, Larry would tell on them and say, hey, she doesn't want treatment, we got to keep our athletes healthy if we want to win the gold medal. And Athlete A does a really good job of setting up just how corrupt and horrible the whole thing is. All the coaches and adults that weren't child molesters sounded like they just were mean. All they cared about is winning these medals, having their gymnastics gym brand be the premier. If you want your kid to, do you want your kid to achieve their dream of being a gymnastics Olympian? That's what your kid's dream is. Are you a terrible parent? Unless you want your kid to have a horrible, miserable, pathetic, non-dream fulfilling life, then you have to do everything that we say. Your kid's got to come to our creepy gymnastic ranch. You can't come. They have to be seen by this creepy doctor, Nassar, every day. And you really, predators flock to controlling what people. If there's a lot of people that have a dream, say to be an Olympian or to be a movie star or to be a stand-up comedian, that attracts predators because they go, oh, if I can just control that dream, then I'm in control and I'm in power and I can. And so, like I said, just for years, our poor athletes, I keep going back to one of the stories where one of the USA Olympic team athletes is in Australia and going through all the pressures of being an athlete. She's in her hotel room going, okay, this is it. My entire life I've worked for this moment. This competition that's tomorrow, my whole life, I gotta run, I gotta do all these flips and twirls in the air, and I gotta land perfectly. If I do one little hop after the land, no one cares. Everybody goes, nah. Yeah, it was real cool that you flipped through the air 10 times, but if you do a little hop at the end, boo. We love a stuck landing. Humans love a stuck landing. And so you're in your hotel room. You're like, okay, I got to sleep tonight, even though I'm so nervous that my whole life's work is coming down to this. I got to figure out how to get my rest. All right, my shoulder hurts a little bit, but I've been pushing through injuries my entire athletic career. I can do it. My mental, I didn't think I would feel like this. I'm in a different country. I always thought it would feel different, but I'm trying to believe in my training and believe in myself and believe in all the hard work that I've done, and I can beat these people. And, you're trying to get your mental game right, and then all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. And it's Larry Nassar coming in for the mandatory treatment of his technique, which, depending on, it doesn't really matter if your shoulder hurt or your ankle hurt. For him, it was all connected to the core, and he needed to manipulate your hips and just pretty much molest you. And I think that our athletes, when an athlete cheats and gets does steroids or something, and they put an asterisk by their accomplishments in the record books. I think our gymnastics athletes should have whatever the opposite of an asterisk is by their accomplishments, saying they had to go through everything with Nassar, like poking and prodding them the whole time. And you're sitting there, they're probably sitting there thinking, my whole dream was to be an Olympian, and now I'm here in a different country, and this is what's happening. And it's just absolutely horrible. So you gotta think that after all of that and years and people, making complaints and them going nowhere, and Nassar just explaining them away, being like, I do this all the time. It's my thing. I'm known for this. I've been lecturing on this technique since 1997. And he makes the people go doubt themselves, and the whole United States gymnastics would make the families that came forward like, I don't know, my daughter got molested. They would make them feel like, oh, you're causing trouble. Your daughter's not going to make the Olympic team. They were really, the parents and the families in the gymnasts were really had. Since they put their whole family, everything into making sure their kid accomplishes the Olympic dream, they put themselves in a tough spot because all of these corrupt, USA gymnastics officials and Nassar could manipulate them because they're going, I don't, we just don't want to screw it up. We don't want to make trouble. And so finally in 2014, an allegation, someone had come forward saying inappropriate touch, the same thing. They brought it to Michigan State University, and then it got over to the law enforcement, and they called up Larry, and at the beginning of the interrogation, Larry sits down, and something I didn't notice the first time I watched it, but for putting this together, he goes, I was waiting for the call. So I guess that the woman that made the allegations against him had gone out of town, and so the investigator that's interrogating Larry had called him, I don't know, a week earlier or some time earlier, and going, hey, we got these allegations, we're looking into it, someone may call you. And so Larry sits down, and he is immediately saying, the waiting was tough on me. I didn't know if you guys were going to call. So I like that. Picture Larry in his, office or in his house, just sweating it out because a detective is saying, hey, we might call. This might be, the end of your life, the end of your career. And in a million years, I don't think Larry would ever guess how hard it would actually blow up when it would. So, like I said, he sits down. The interrogator goes, yeah, sorry, you had to wait a little bit, but the potential victim had gone out of town, and we had to wait for him to come back. And Larry is really, this whole interrogation, Larry just wants resolve. He's very used to, when something like this happens, say it bubbles up, he's very used to being able to explain it away, make the person in the family feel a little bit stupid by saying, I'm a doctor, okay, I do this. This is, at one point in this interrogation, he goes, if this is illegal, then I've been spreading, you know what I mean? I've been spreading this, saying, I've been lecturing on this, you know what I mean? This is my thing, I'm known for this, okay? You know what I mean? He says, you know what I mean, 300 times during this whole thing. Okay, and so you got to think, Larry was sitting there sweating it out for, say, a week. I don't know exactly. And he didn't like that. He says later in the interrogation, the waiting was really hard on me. And so you got to think, in all of that time, he really probably thought about what he was going to say. So these first initial monologues that he goes with that are very early on, they kind of do the pleasantries and like, hey man, sorry you had to wait a week, the potential victim went out of town, and he was like, yeah, it was hard to wait because I was scared. And then the female interrogator, which usually with sex stuff they do a female, I agree, I think that is smart. And also it was just one single interrogator the whole time, which I also think just works better. Every time there's two in there, there's always one that just is like, I've had a good career, she'll tell you, and just basically says nothing. So then the interrogator goes, still very pleasant. She wants him, obviously, like all the interrogators, she just wants him to talk. And so she probably has set up in her head, like, all right, he's going to try to bury me with medical jargon. If in the first few minutes I just say, that's insane, Larry. I don't believe you. You're molesting, okay? If you do that right at the beginning, then Larry could clam up. And so I think part of her strategy to keep Larry talking is to give him, as he's talking, give him reactions that it maybe looks like she's going along with it. So as he's saying, it's not sexual, it's medical. She'll go, oh, okay, yeah, all right, I see that in the video. Okay, I do see that. And so she's giving him false sense of that this thing is going to get resolved today, as long as he just does enough explaining and says how long he's done it and how many times he's done it, then everything by the end of this will be right as rain and he can go back to his normal life. And so she says, something like, I know it's tough. These things are tough, and there's an investigation going on at your work, Michigan State University, and you're probably hoping that the Michigan State, with that investigation with your job, goes before the one with law enforcement, because that one affects your unemployment. And she's trying to just set up, like, let's just figure this out, Larry. And this is the first word for word. I wrote a couple of these word for word at the beginning, and then the rest of them, it's kind of the same. It just gets more frantic and more desperate. And he says, and he ends every sentence with, okay. And it just gets more sad. But the first one, in my opinion, he gets a whole week of sweating it out. Oh my God, are they going to call me? This is really scary. I'm pacing around my house. I have no idea if I'm going to go down as a chomo or not. You would naturally, even whether you wanted to or not, sort of come up with the story you were going with. And so after the pleasantries, this is what he says, and you got to think this is what he thought of in that week of waiting. So she goes, you probably are hoping that the one with your job goes pretty quick because it affects your employment. And he goes, no. No, it's affecting her. I want to get this resolved so that there's better understanding. And that's one of the creepiest parts about Larry Nassar, and it just makes me want to hit him with a hammer. It's never the victim. It's always that victim needs more explaining. They just don't understand what he's doing. Okay, they must have been abused or something, because it's not right that they're reacting that way, and that just is hard to imagine for me. And so he goes, no, it's affecting her. I want to get this resolved so that there's better understanding, okay? To me, everything else is irrelevant. It's really, I feel like, horrid that she would feel that way. And that's why I'm like, I gotta get some resolution. Notice he needs the resolution because he's scared that his life's over. He wants to go back to just being nice and relaxed like before. I got to get some resolution. I know that he goes, I know that I'm not allowed to talk to her and everything. And he kind of rolls his eyes like, I know it's an investigation and there's these procedures, and it's like, yeah, Larry, you're not allowed to talk to her. He goes, I'm not allowed to talk to her. But it's good to talk. It's good to talk. And so you got to think that's his big opening thing. I don't think it had the desired, it didn't carry the weight he was hoping. And then she asks him, so what are you not working with MSU right now? Are you taking a leave of absence? And he tries to dumb it way down. They said, they told me to stay home. I'm doing a bunch of autism research, and I just figure I'll do my autism research, which really sends a chill to my core, being like, this guy should not be around special needs kids even more. I mean, can you imagine? So he's like, yeah, I went home. But again, that kind of makes him seem like a hero too. Like, yes, my job, just formality, sent me home. But since then, I'm saving the world and doing autism research. And then it gets into a little bit of the meat. She goes, what do you know about why you're here? Something like that. And he goes, the patient was concerned that I was inappropriately touching them and didn't know why. I mean, you can't write that. They thought they were being inappropriately touched, but they didn't know why. Like I said, this is my thing, you know what I mean? And then he continues, and this, again, word for word, quote, I do this on a regular basis. This is a treatment I lecture on. National, international organizations. I was the keynote guest speaker. I always thought it was just the keynote speaker. He was a keynote guest speaker in Australia for this technique. They gave me 2 hours to lecture for this specific technique. He's talking about where he just molests the children and pretends like it's medical. That's why I brought the videos. And he points to his computer. I brought the videos, and there was no question I was touching her in her private areas. That's what I do. I mean, but you know. And so he just kind of delves into incoherentness, but he goes, I was touching your private areas. That's what I do. I mean, yeah, but you know. And the interrogator's like, I don't know if I know what you're saying on this one. And part of Larry's plan to get away with the whole thing and to make sure he can continue to abuse and to fulfill his needs is one of the ways is he took what he does and he figured as long as I say that I lecture about it or that there's other videos, or as he really tried as hard as he could to make his technique, it's disgusting, a real medical procedure. And so throughout the years, you could see how it would be hard to come at him as a parent, and you got your kid and you're sitting there going, did the doctor, the person that we trusted, he's a doctor, he was wearing official clothing that said, you know, MSU doctor or Olympic doctor. Are we being crazy or is this too much? And then he goes to you, I've lectured on this since 1997. Okay, I've gone to Australia as the keynote guest speaker, all right? I do this to everybody. I do this every single day. And so why would this be the one? And it's just truly evil and unbelievable. And then he's going on, he's like, most doctors the visits are quick. Mine are 30 to 60 minutes minimum. And then you get to see a different side of him. So he has, I think he has maybe like four or five different modes while he's going through this. He has where he downplays the weirdness by just saying how long he's done it and how often he's done it. And then the second mode is to try to confuse and trick using medical jargon. So he'll string a bunch of long, big medical words together while he's doing this. And then he'll be like, well, you know, you're not going to understand that, but it's medical. And so he has that one, and then he has kind of a quiet, feel bad for himself, feel bad that he let someone down, one of his patients, that he ruined the trust, which is sacred. And then the fifth mode, which is by far the most disgusting, is when, and he usually slips this mode in like at the after all the other four, and he'll like plant seeds that his victims, it must be because they were abused before. Like at one point he goes, all three, he like gets all quiet, he whispers to the investigator, he goes, all three of my investigations had all three been sexually abused. So, and he goes, when I'm doing my technique, he says something like, when I'm doing my technique and they tense up when I'm doing it, my first thought is, who hurt them? You know, what? And it's like, Larry, my God. And so, like I said, all Larry is going for in this whole thing is resolved. And he switches between those modes that I just talked about. And whatever one he thinks is needed, and the investigator is really going along with him. And I think she's surprised with how easy it's getting him to talk would be. All really she's having to do at this point is going, yep, I'm following you, and not like I said, put too much pressure too early to get him to clam up, because I think he thinks, all right, this is going well. I can paint this the way, and she's asking little questions that maybe seem like she has doubt, but not enough to really rattle him. And then we get to the videos part of so he brought his old laptop where he had taken a bunch of old like 90s VHSs and put the videos on his computer so he could show people that thought he was a chomo, hey, look, here's a video. And the investigator is going, okay, yeah, can you show me the video of where you explain where you molest the child? He calls it intervaginal pelvic floor work. and so now it's kind of funny. He's like has this computer and he's trying to scroll around in these old videos. But if you've ever tried to do that, it's hard to like get to the spot. So he tries to drag forward and like the video pops on and you can kind of hear a voice be like, yeah, make sure you rub in between, and then oh, that's not it. And he'll like go to a different spot of the video trying to just desperately find anything that helps him not seem like a creeper. And so he'll find a part in the video and the investigator will go, okay, yeah, that's what you said. And, came out that he had been, one of his colleagues that also got arrested had a video of him doing his treatments. And totally horrifying. So, but a part of this phase when he's trying to show her videos, like, is that anything? No? Okay, we get to hear the story of how Larry Nassar came up with, according to him, his genius technique. And he goes, this is the story of the great technique. He goes, the way I ended up working in this area, which is just young girls' private area. He goes, the way I ended up working in this area was a hamstring injury, and she was guiding me. She was guiding my hand. She was taking my hand, and I was right there in her vaginal area, and she was like, that's it. And I was like, frick, what did I do? Her range of motion doubled, and my hand was right there. It's like, Larry. Does he even believe that? Like he's working on some young girl and she takes his hand and his eyes are closed because he's such a good person and a good doctor, and she's just guiding his hand and she puts it right on her vagina and goes, that's it, she exclaims. And Larry, I think, is in a way lucky he was born and did this when it was, because you go back even just a little click in time and he would have been beaten to death by all of these parents. So the fact that this whole thing, society was to a point where his arrest and his trial and everything went the way it did, I think is lucky for him. Or you could say unlucky, because he's spending 175 years in federal prison. So that's the video part where he's on his computer, really just trying to find something. And the investigator's doing a good job of, like I said, just kind of going along with him, going, okay, yeah, giving him enough, like, okays, all right, that does make sense, where he is going, okay, the resolve is coming. If I can just keep explaining, keep confusing her with all the medical jargon. And then one of those other modes is the quiet, trust breaker mode. And that's when in the back half of this interrogation, he'll dip into that where he gets kind of quiet and resolved. And he goes, something needs to change. Okay. And I can't have this. You know what I mean? I need to put in safeguards and I need to do more explaining. Okay. And I need to, and it's going to be expensive. It's going to be expensive. He keeps saying, like, I do all this work for volunteer, okay? I donate my time, and if this is the way I'm going to be treated, I can't do this anymore, but it's going to be expensive. They're going to have to bring someone into the room with me. And also, he's desperately, almost everything he says in the back half of the interrogation has something to do with steering the narrative away from this being a serious police investigation instead of a misunderstanding. So he'll go, after this, a lot of changes are going to be made. And he's talking about, like, all right, this was a big thing, but moving forward, my job is I'm going to do this to protect my job, and I'm going to do this to protect my family. And he brings up his wife and kids, and which I think he's probably done throughout the years too, because people are saying to him, I think part of why it's hard to not, like for his colleagues to just pull the trigger and call the cops and be like, I think this guy's a child molester, is because they've worked with him for so many years, and they see him with his family and kids, and they go, oh God. And so Larry brings up, he goes, this isn't worth my family and my kids, saying to the investigator, hey, listen, if you pull the trigger and try to put me in jail forever, I got a family. He's trying to pull out all the stops. He's dipping into the quiet. It's going to be expensive. I try to explain what I do, but I guess I just going to have to change. I'm not going to do that treatment anymore. But it helps a lot of people. But it's just not worth it for my family. And it's like this quiet. And then they get into, what these allegations were, what she said, the young woman that made these allegations. And he's, like I said, going like, there's lots of things I can change to protect myself. There's nothing, he doesn't say anything to protect the kids. It's all, I just need to make changes, but those changes are going to be expensive. So the fact that you brought me in here and the fact that she made these allegations, it's really going to hurt the program, and it's really going to hurt a lot of young kids, because it's expensive to bring in a doctor they actually pay, and my technique and my treatment that helps everybody, whether you have a shoulder injury or an ankle injury, I rub your private parts and it makes it feel better, and I'm not going to do that anymore. And so he's trying to make it sound like little poor old me is just not, I tried to volunteer my time, but this is. And he goes and he keeps saying, he goes on this is another one I wrote down word for word. He goes, quote, that's my issue. That's my self-torture. I guess you could say, yes, she was victimized. Yes, I was victimized. It almost sounds like the part of the movie where, this is getting deep into the interrogation, and I don't think he likes where it's going. He's not feeling that resolve, like it's going away. And so with this monologue, it's like him stepping up on a soapbox, like that part in the movie when everything is going wrong, and then the hero character steps up and delivers a speech. And this little section, he takes on this speech quality, and so he goes, yes, she was victimized. Yes, I was victimized to myself, okay? But hurting someone like that ain't right. And in this part, he tries to go for a little like blue-collar charm that he hasn't had in the rest of the interrogation. He goes, hurting someone like that ain't right, okay? It's not right. And then it's like almost like Chris Watts' private investigator. I think at this point he realizes he's not really sure where he's going. And he goes, okay, that's what I'm saying, and that's why that hurts me to hurt her. Is that making sense? And I think the interrogator is so surprised that he's been rattling on and on and on for so long, and she hasn't had to do anything, and he's just spilling, that she goes, yep, I'm following you. Yep. She says, yep, 5 times in one little thing, but she's just going, yeah, keep going. This is stuff. And he's going, I need to put in some safeguards, and then in this section, there's a lot. They're talking about the actual woman that made the allegations, and there's a lot muted. Anything that's about her and her medical treatment, they mute, so it's hard to know totally what is happening with this one. But he's just doing a lot of things where he's like, I'm unwinding them. It's you don't understand these treatments. It's a different type of touch. I'm not caressing, and I'm not and I don't know if he's actually forgetting the word or he just is pretending like it's not even in his mind, but he's going, I'm not caressing, or and you could tell he goes, you could tell he just doesn't want to say it. He's going, groping. He finally says, he's like, I'm not groping. And like I said, in the back half of this thing, he just picks one of the 4 or 5 modes. So he's either making it seem absurd that someone doesn't understand that this is medical treatment. He's either talking medical jargon. I was unwinding the coccyx, and to do that, and you're not going to understand this, but blah, blah, blah. Or he's going in like, I tried to help. I did. And I volunteered my time, and I helped a lot of people, but I can't do it if I'm going to get in trouble, and it's going to be expensive. And then he'll dip into I just need to do more explaining. I think if they would just let me talk to her and I can explain, and that's another thing that just sends horror through my bones, is imagine being molested by this creep years before any of this, like in the 90s or something, and then you have the courage to tell someone, and they talk to Larry's boss, and Larry's boss goes, I just need to do more explaining. And they say, okay. And they bring you, after just being touched by this guy, they bring you in front of him as a kid, and you just have to hear him ramble on and explain it to you. And in the very last hour, she asks him, would you be willing to take a polygraph? And he goes, yeah, I will. And he like I said, his goal, his sole goal, desperately is to just get this resolved today. The investigator had called him. Finally, he had been waiting. Like, is she gonna call or not? I'm worried. And said, hey, we do want to talk. Would you want to come? Gave him some dates, and he goes, I will come right now. So that really shows you he did not like sitting there and waiting for what was going to happen. Larry, as the personality, he just wants to get down there, bury you with medical jargon, make you feel stupid for thinking that this technique he's done for years is somehow abuse. And he's been successful doing that for so many years that as he's not feeling the resolve, and he's not feeling the investigator say, you know what, Larry, I'm on your side. That does make sense. She's keeping distance from him, going, okay, but I don't know, that's not really what she said, or he's not feeling that, and so he gets a little bit desperate and pathetic as it's going. But he's already said his piece and these monologues, and so it's just different versions of what those modes I was talking about, and he just keeps going on and on. And so she'll be like, okay, the great thing about the polygraph is, we can get past people. And he's going, yeah, all right, whatever, I just want to get past this. And then she explains the polygraph, which we all know from the old Watts case. She explains to him, yeah, it takes a couple hours, and don't worry about it. It's not like the movies, and you're only really against yourself. So she'll ask you, are the lights on? And she'll have you lie, and you get it all calibrated with what your body does when you lie, and then we will be able to see, hopefully whether this touch was medical or something inappropriate, and then we'll meet after and we can talk about it, and we'll get you all figured out, and then we can move past you. And she's using that interrogator voice tone of like, yeah, this is great for you. We will get past you, and then you will, and you can tell Larry is just going, okay. Yeah, he's listening to the way the polygraph just really losing all steam and gusto that he had, going, okay. Yeah. And that polygraph section ends up, you keep thinking, if you're just listening to it, that the interrogation is about to end, but it keeps going because she'll say something about the polygraph, and he'll go, yeah, okay, whatever we got to do. I just want to get, resolution, but not being happy with the fact that they're talking about a polygraph, and she's still not 100% on his side. Then he'll launch into another monologue type, one of the modes I was talking about. And I think she's like, well, if he's just talking, that's why we're here. So I'm not going to shut him up. So then he'll go on a long thing about how there just needs to be more explaining, and how I'm not going to be able to help people anymore, and it's going to be expensive. And he keeps trying to, and she doesn't bite, and it comes to an end. Like I said, no charges came from this one. And for 2 more years, he just did his thing. And then finally in 2016, he gets brought in again. And I feel like we should go over that one maybe next week. But I'm going to cut it off there. I hope you guys are having a good week so far and looking forward to a holiday, whatever you're doing. I'll see you next time. Why? Stiving why? Shamita.